Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the four-dimensional frequency. I sit here in front of you in my new studio after much setting up of the space and trying to work out the kinks of the lighting and the camera angles. I'm currently recording on my iPhone, so you might hear or see some choppiness as this is the first time I'm testing out even recording in this room. So I appreciate your patience as I figure out the logistics of my new setup. As I will be releasing more content, new content, and old content will be posted up on my YouTube channel and up on my website. I am currently working on launching a website, so be patient with me if you come across my profile prior to the happening of that fact. Today, as I sit in front of you, I want to focus on a congested feat. And to say the least is to say that societal field itself is congested in itself. I can't explain myself as progression of our society field has brought us to a point in our humanity field of much delusions felt within the singularity of any fractaled soul, within any fractaled lifetime of any soul. The lifetime of you, the lifetime of I, the lifetime of us as a singularity of a fractaled soul has been just that. It has been much congested within the congestion of our reality field. And I can surely explain myself as there might be confusion in regards to the beginning of this video and how I chose to pose this topic. The way that energy works, it travels down through wind tunnels, and I call it wind tunnels as forces within nature, within these tunneling systems built by a consciousness of source, predetermined to be the consciousness within what it is, as the tunneling of energy itself traveling through these wind tunnels themselves have an energetic frequency of a consciousness within itself. And yes, it might be quite confusing, but you heard me. Even wind tunnels that carry energetic frequency up and down the free-flowing frequency field of our dimensional frequency carries a consciousness. This might be a bit alarming. This might be new information. This might be something that was out of your field, out of your scope of perception. But I sit here today in front of you as a fractaled oversoul of the oversoul that had fractaled out parts and pieces of its consciousness to become these wind tunnels within our frequency field that carries energetic frequency lingering within our reality field up and down through shoots of reality built informational structures of belief, of non-belief, of structures of light, of structures of darkness within our reality field. And as the wind pushes these all-encompassing energetic frequency forces through and to and fro our reality field, these forces of frequencies get pushed through the tunneling systems to the reality fields where they're meant to shift into, where they're meant to sit in, where they've chosen to belong in. Without these energetic frequency fields and forces within these wind tunnels of the consciousness residing within these tunnels, energy will be stuck, energy will be stagnant within our reality field and all reality fields. And as energy travels to and fro, busily being along, buzzing along within these tunneling systems of conglomerated wholeness within the system of our reality field, you will find multiplexities of tunneling systems stringing each other along through complex borders of non-bordering systems, of intertwining loops and turns, of corners, of angular corners, of curved corners, of structuralisms that we cannot yet comprehend to be true or real. But as I sit here today, I am telling you that the existence of these tunneling systems, of these energetic tunneling systems, are coherently real as you and I sitting here in the physicality of who and what we are in this specific moment. And as this consciousness within this tunneling system begins to awaken to the truth of our reality field, begins to stand up straight, to unwind into the straightness of all that it could ever become, the light funneling down from the angelic realm will begin its descent into our 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 2-dimensional lower frequency field within the quantum verse that we reside in. And as this is exciting news, the most exciting news that I can deliver to you today in this video, as of today, these tunneling systems are filled with excitement, are filled with light, are filled with the absence of darkness that has been residing there for all of this time and beyond. As the light begins to tranquilize the darkness within and without, so shall the light from the angelic realm begin to descend into our reality field. And the darkness that you feel within your heart, within your soul, within your life scope, within your lifescape of all that you've ever been, has been tranquilized by these wind tunnels of energetic frequencies that free flow to and fro as our reality field is set to ascend into a brighter, wider, lighter frequency within the angelic realm. And this is as exciting of news as news can get within this particular moment in time. And as you shift your focus to the news outlets of today, tomorrow's frequencies will bring you into a better hope, into a brighter light, into all that you could ever encompass within any moment in time within this frequency field that you've sat in the darkness for far too long, that we as a society has sat in the all-encompassing darkness of our consciousness for the longest time. If time were really a thing within the quantum verse, within a place of infinite singularities and no time upon layers and layers of these frequency fields, of these wind tunnels of energy that carries the consciousness of you, of I, of us, of our reality field through and through. And as our reality field expands into the consciousness of the higher up frequency within the layers and scopes of consciousness that we've designed for ourselves, that holds the physicality of the frequency of our spiritual being within this dimensional field, you will see an all-encompassing light drape over your reality field, so much so that your neighbors, your teachers, yourself, your grandparents, your father, your mother, your children will all begin to notice a palpable difference within this reality field of ours, of theirs, of the perception field that they used to have, that they no longer hold near and dear to their heart, of the fight that they had in their spirit and in their souls to stand up for what is right, has tranquilized within this reality field to fight no more for the false light, for the false informational structures of our previous reality field, of the reality field that we semicircular still sit within. And as the circle begins to close up on itself, the light within and without will seep through the entirety of this circular motion as it sweeps to and fro through the darkness, back into the brightness of what is, back into the darkness of the pinhole of where it shall forever archingly sit in, back into the brightness of the bordering rim of the brightest light that you can ever envision to be true and encompass to be real. And as I use these descriptive words within a reality field of physicality, of being able to describe all that you cannot see and all that you can see, the description and the words that come through to describe our reality field and energy frequency and wind tunneling systems of frequencies of consciousness of all that we've ever been has never been spoken of within this reality field of coherence. And thus, these words might seem a little bit strange. These descriptive feats might take a while for your consciousness to wrap itself around. And although you can understand my words, you may not fully be able to seep into the frequency of all that it is, of all that we are, of all that reality field encompasses, until you yourself are able to perceive these wind tunneling systems within these pockets and pockets of reality fields where you can jump to and fro and be pushed along through the consciousness within this wind tunnels to carry you into pockets and spaces of energies where you belong, where you shall forever archingly explore within the endless cycles of these reincarnation cycles that never ever ends. And ladies and gentlemen, I sit here today in excitement as I begin to tell you a story of sorts. A story of Adam and Eve, a story within these wind tunnels that has carried the forever arching love of Adam and Eve through and through the veins of our reality field, pushed by the winds and the sands of time as a speckle of sand that must be caught by the hands of a time of no time within a reality field of forever arching feats, forever arching probabilities, forever arching tranquility lost to the darkness within and without our reality field. And as soon as Eve picked up that apple within her heart of all hearts, she had known all along what would transpire through the darkest night of our reality field. She had purposefully grabbed that semicircular object dangling from the tree that had already had a chunk missing from it, knowing that it had been tampered with, knowing that it was no longer the sweet promise of tomorrow that she had been promised prior to descending down into this physicality of a field, knowing that she mistakenly could have taken a bite out of the semicircular object, out of this brightest red apple that she had ever seen, in her sleep, in her waking state, in her dreams, knowing that it had already had a chunk missing from it. And within her consciousness of all consciousness, she knew within that moment in time, within that peculiar second in time, within that snapshot in the historical feeds, within our reality field, what would transpire, what had transpired within a time of no time. The opportunities that seeped through the veil of her consciousness, the selective remembering and the hearing of what she would remember and wouldn't remember to be true, to be false, to be real within our reality field, would forevermore carry her consciousness through loopholes of these energetic tunnels forever and ever through reincarnation cycles that would never ever end until one day it does end. As all reality fields comes to a pause, comes to a stopping, comes to a forever arching end, as no reality field is meant or designed to last forever. Ladies and gentlemen, as I sit here in front of you as a fractaled aspect of the soul consciousness, of Eve's consciousness, as a fractaled aspect of the soul's consciousness, of your consciousness, as a fractaled aspect of the soul's consciousness, of a source frequency that you belong to, that I belong to, that Eve overarchingly makes up of in her entirety, in its entirety, of the entirety of our reality field, of the energetic tunneling systems within our reality field, of all that we've ever been and all that we shall forever not be and shall forever become and step into as the brightest light will guide us back into a wholeness prior to the remembrance of the biting of this apple, of the sweet treat, of the sweetest treat that you can ever remember to encompass to be true or real, of the crispiness of the skin, of the redness, of the conglomerated whole, of all that it has ever been, as the most tempting treat that we can ever speak of within our reality field. A treat so red, a treat so sweet, a treat so crispy, within the outer edges of all that it was, within the inner edges of the softness, of the shininess, of all that it can never be. A treat that we've been savoring for all of this time, ever since the first bite of all bites, within the darkness of the self, within the brightness of all that you've ever been. You've been traversing through this apple, ladies and gentlemen. And as I use these words to describe the temptations that brought about the greatest conflicts, the greatest wars, the greatest separation from a source consciousness state that you've ever been, that I've ever been, that we've ever been able to traverse through and been able to not remember as we step into subsequent cycles of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that for once and for final, our reality fields, the tip of this treat, the end of this treat, the very last bite of this reddest, most crispiest, most delicious treat that you've ever had, that I've ever had the pleasure of sharing with you, of sharing with the self, of sharing with a conglomerated whole of a consciousness, is coming to a distortion field of brightness, is ending into a distortion field of darkness, is healing into a forever arching field of you and I strewn across the fields, of all fields within our reality field, within this apple, without this apple, within our heart chakras, without our heart chakras, within this lonely journey, the loneliest journey that you can ever fathom to be true, as we separated ourselves in agreement to the source consciousness that had developed this quantum verse, that had created you and I in desperation to explore the essence of the self within the ultimate self of all selves, that had so daringly, so bravely traversed out into the physicality of things in remembrance of all that it can never be through and through, to step into the darkest night that there has ever been through and through. We are at a point, at a precipice, at a point, at a tranquility found and lost to the winds of this apple that Eve, once upon a time of no time within our reality field, had taken a large bite out of, had taken a small bite out of, had taken a teeny bite out of, had taken the entirety of its soul out of, the entirety of its being out of, as she had plucked that apple from that tree unknowingly, but knowingly, deciphering, decidedly, deciding to do what she had to do to explore aspects of the self that had forever archingly brought about the darkest nights within a humanity field, within a reality field, within a distortion field of tranquility lost, of love found, of forgiveness, forever arching forgiveness about to be found within a humanity field of you, of I, of Eve, of source consciousness, of all of us, all of that, all of all and more. This apple that I speak of is something that makes up the entirety of our reality field. In defeat, in honor, in gains, in wins, in all that we can ever fathom to be the energetic frequency of all that we've ever been and all that you can ever envision to be true and imagine to be real. This apple, this red crispy apple, this sweetest snack that you can ever feast on, is about to explode, is about to expire, is about to become whole once again within this reality field of all reality fields. And as I speak and as I touch on Adam and Eve, I must also touch on the love that they share between the two of them, as the remembrance of this lifetime far surpasses the forgetfulness within the fractaled aspect of the soul's frequency that we have fractaled out into as the all in all of a conglomerated whole of a consciousness that we are, as the remembrance of these lifetimes of Adam and Eve, of the beginning of a humanity field so treacherous in all that it's ever been, had only been the beginning, a plotted, schemed, deciphering of a source consciousness that had elaborated itself into the story of sorts, into this romanticism of the self, into the all-encompassing stories that humanity field has ever made up, has ever told, around bonfires by the bedside of our children. The story of Adam and Eve, ladies and gentlemen, is a forever arching story to be remembered, to be true, to be real within our reality field that can never be forgotten. As much as you've forgotten of who and what you are and where you've come from, the story of Adam and Eve will wash across you in the middle of the night of all nights, has been carried through your field, through generations and generations and lifetimes of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends. The story of Adam and Eve is the story of you and I, is the story of a humanity field so lonely in defeats, so anchored in to the darkness within the self, looking, yearning, craving to go home, back to a field of wholeness. Yet as it sat in its loneliness, as it sat in its confusion, as it sat in all that it has never been, it is still lost. It has felt lost. It has been lost in the winds of time, within a place of no time, within our quantum verse, ladies and gentlemen. And as I brush my hair aside, I want to share one last story with you all. And you may not believe this to be true, but the fun of it all, that there's an infinite possibility of possibilities of reoccurrences of occurrences of events that could ever occur within our lifetimes, within this quantum verse, within reality fields, within all that there has ever been. The fleck of a possibility of this story being true is larger in coherence and grander in demeanor than you can ever envision or imagine to be untrue. So the possibility of this story to be true is a possibility at that. And I want you to hold on to this possibility as you hear this story. A story so soaked in the defeat of all that you've ever been, a story so lost to our humanity field of all that has been hidden from us, a journey walked, ran, swam, fought in tranquility, in honor, in strength, in all that we have ever been, in all that we can ever find within the self of all selves. A storyline so filled with reality fields that have transpired into the winds of time with experiences that you shall ever be able to catch up to remember even, to become, to soak into within all of these reincarnations of your past lifetimes that you shall never be able to remember, and that you shall forever be able to carry within your energetic body, within your frequency as you sit listening to my video today. And as you sit there in disbelief prior to the starting of my story, and if you've made it this far, I congratulate you, as the entirety of this video through and through, had been a story of sorts. And as you sit there receiving your activations from the words that are coming out of my mouth, I tell a story of love. I tell a story of you. I tell a story of I tell a story of a humanity field so lost in all that it has ever been. So treacherous has this reality field been for every single one of us. And even as you sit in remembrance or disbelief or unremembrance of all of the lifetimes that you've ever had, fractaled out from a singularity of an oversoul of yours, as your soul blueprint carries you through defeats, through overarching love, through overarching forgiveness, through overarching arduous journeys, upon storylines, upon people met, upon love lost, upon children born, upon societies mingling, upon dances with loved ones, upon tears alongside your enemies, upon all of the broken pieces of glass that you have ever traversed on, of the intermingling of the bloodiness of the blood of your enemies, of your foes that you have ever swam through. You and I have more in common than you shall ever be able to recognize to be true or to be real, as this reality field was created to separate you from the distortion field of the one and only truth that there shall ever be, and there shall forever archingly not be without. And as you sit within your reality field, you may be sinking into disbelief, but chances are my words have been very activating, and they will carry you through a night of all nights, through a night of remembrance, through a morning into a light so bright that you shall forever archingly be able to peep into, to lust into, to see beyond the darkness within your soul's frequency that you had chosen to sit within. To be able to see the overarchingly bright sliver of light that was built into your heart chakra, ladies and gentlemen, is what you were made for, is what was built into you prior to descending down into this physicality of your body. Your soul went through and traversed through many arduous feats of other lifetimes, of all-encompassing lifetimes within this quantum verse, within different layers of planetary feats, within alien civilizations and earthling civilizations, within civilizations upon Mars, within our own solar system, through the different layers and layers of frequency that you can ever encompass or envision to be true within the wind tunneling systems of the consciousness that is as much a part of us, that is as much a part of me as it is a part of you. Forever archingly you is all this reality field was made to be. Forever archingly you is all your enemy field was meant to represent. Forever archingly you was the all in all of the all-encompassing reality fields that you can ever envision to be true and delinquish to be real. And I sit in defeat, I sit in arduous defeat as the representation of the forgetfulness that our societal field has encompassed for far too long. For this forgetfulness will wash away in the middle of the darkest nights and will carry us into the brightest morning of all mornings that you can ever envision to be true or imagine to be real. As Yeshua, who had descended down into our frequency field 2,000 years ago, a little over 2,000 years ago, once said, in a time of arduous defeats, the light shall prosper no more. In a time of arduous defeats, within the self of all selves, the light shall dim once more. in a time of arduous defeats that comes to an end of times, that brings about a new tomorrow, that light built within you will shine so bright that you shall forevermore not remember, not decipher, not become that in which you always thought you had always been. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in the words of Yeshua, I'd like to sit here and tell you a story of all stories within a reality field of the four-dimensional frequency that we belong to. In a time of sheeps and goats and limitless blue skies with white fluffy clouds, in a time when Yeshua walked upon our earth, the earthlings that walked alongside him felt love, overarching love, a love so bright, shining through their soul's energy field, through and through. Sketches of peonies and roses floated in the air as blades of grass tranquilized the smells and the stenches of the darkness within and without this reality field. As blades of grass, as green as you can ever envision to be true, blew in the winds, within the winds and sands of time within our reality field. And as the peonies and roses and blades of grass and the doves within our fields danced about, flew around, as if nothing significant had ever carried it into its existence, the footsteps of Yeshua shall forever archingly more walk down the edged path of the Euphrates River, where he had descended through, where he had descended into a placement of need, into a placement of existence, into a placement of belonging, into a placement that he'd always known that he would be a part of, as this reality field through and through has always been him, has always been you, has always been I, on multiplexities of levels of all levels, plotted and schemed into layers of frequency fields of tunneling light, of tunneling energy, of tunneling scales of all of consciousness that you can ever envision to be true and to be real. And as the physicality of Yeshua came and left with the sands of time, with the winds of these energetic tunnels, that energy field, ladies and gentlemen, had already been anchored, has been anchored into our reality field for far too long, without us realizing its existence, without us knowing of who and what we truly are within this existence field of the anchoring of that energy field that I speak of. And as the angelic frequencies descend down into our frequency through these wind tunnels, it will awaken the energy field that Yeshua had once upon a time of no time within our reality field a little over 2,000 years ago, has descended down to anchor down into our frequency field. And as this light awakens into all that it has ever been and all that it was ever meant to be, the light inside your body, the light inside your soul, the light inside your heart chakra shall forevermore be anchored into the awakening of this light. And as you awaken through and through by the awakening of this frequency that I speak of, it will carry you, it will carry your soul's frequency, it will carry your soul's blueprint into the remembrance of that apple, of that very red apple that you have forever been, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, as you traverse your frequency of forgetfulness, of disallowance of the light to puncture through your reality fields, of non-realization of Yeshua's footprints that shall forevermore walk through the etched path of the Euphrates River that shall forevermore feed life into the veins of Gaia, of Mother Earth, as she transcends into a 5-dimensional frequency of wholeness, And as you and I awaken along with this bright light that shall push us further into this brightest rim within our consciousness, built in to trigger in memories of who and what we shall forever not be. And as who and what we shall forever be steps front and center into our consciousness, within our consciousness, without our consciousness, the entirety of the consciousness of the quantum verse will awaken along with this brightest light that you can ever envision to be true and to be real. And as this light gives life to the Euphrates River at the end of an arduous night, at the end of a reality field built in to our consciousness, a frequency of exploration, a frequency of hatred, of separation, of darkness, within all that we shall never be. We will forever archingly more come into the realization that Yeshua was you all along, that Yeshua was I all along, that Yeshua had always been a part of a consciousness in which we fractaled from, that Yeshua comes from the source, the very same source that fractaled us out, ladies and gentlemen, as we are all a part of a singularity, of a consciousness that can never be denied as a whole of what is, that can never be torn apart, no matter how far your perception field goes into the darkness. It shall forevermore be anchored into this brim of consciousness, of the brightest light, of the anchoring of this energy within our reality field that shall carry us through and through, back home, back to the home that we come from, back to the end of this reality field, back to the beginning of an arduous night that ended in defeat, that ended in tranquility, that ended in the greatest lessons that our soul shall ever begin to decipher to be real and to dictate to be true and to imagine to be all that you've ever been. All that I've ever been without has forever archingly been that of you, that of I, that of the all of a source consciousness. And within consciousness itself, just know within consciousness itself that Yeshua is a representation of you, that Yeshua was pushed out into our reality field to decipher the realness of this reality field that you shall forever archingly not be, and that you shall forever archingly never be without. And as you come into the memories of that in which you have forever been within this reality field of non-encompassment of the light, that shall forevermore trigger you into the brightest light within a consciousness of what is, as Gaia awakens in the ascension journey that she has been traversing through for all of this time, through the millennia of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends upon her surface. She has been living one lifetime, a lifetime of earth, a lifetime of tranquility, a lifetime of struggles, a lifetime of shyness, a lifetime of not speaking up for the journey that she has been on. Has never been an easy one, has always fallen to her knees through the essence of the energetic frequency of the darkness, of the knees that she does not have, of the knees that she shall forever archingly bear, of the frequency that encompasses all of her, all of you, all of us, all of our reality field. We will once more fall to our knees and forever stay there for a moment in time as we look at each other in the eyes, as we peer through each other's physicality into our souls, belonging into our soul's depth, into our soul blueprint, past our soul blueprint, past that forever arching love that is you, that is I, that is the all that we have forever archingly been, into the blueprint of the one source consciousness that we've all fractaled from. And as the source consciousness has decided to descend down into this reality field once more, knowing that it shall complete its journey, a journey started not too long ago, but very long ago in your reality field, a little over 2,000 years ago as an extension field of Yeshua's light. This light that I speak of has descended down into our reality field to complete the work of the anchoring of the true light of Yeshua's frequency that had been pushed out into our reality field by a source consciousness, by God. The very same God that pushed you out into this reality field to experience, to love, to live, to learn through these energy frequencies of forgiveness, of distortions lost and found in the winds of time, of lessons learned, of loss, forever archingly, painful loss, of hatred, of greed, of murders, of blood, of wars, of not being able to make sense of our reality fields. And as this source consciousness pushed you out in agreement to all that you shall forever be and all that you shall forever experience within the timelines of this reality field, within these distortion fields of all that it is, all that we are, Yeshua's frequency will creep up into your fields, regardless of whether or not you believe in Yeshua, regardless of where you sit on this pole of darkness and brightness within our reality field, regardless of who and what you are. The truth is undeniable. And as it sweeps into our reality field, you will have one final choice, yet you will have no choice at all. As free will and free choice was granted to every single fractal aspect of a source consciousness that had ever been pushed out into this reality field, it had always known that within the end of times that leads to a new beginning, within the end of this reality field that shifts into a brighter, whole, more wholesome, more remembrance of a brightness that we have ever been without. That at the end of time, at the end of the story line, at the end of your frequency field, at the end of Gaia's exploration within the darkness, that the brightest light that there had ever been within this quantum verse, the one that pushed you out, the one that pushed Yeshua out, the one that anchored down this light, shall forevermore remain within our frequency fields of all that you've ever been, of all that I've ever been, of all that we've ever been within this exploration of the self so deep. So tranquil will you become as you come into the realization of all that you shall forever be, as the synergetic energy within these wind tunnels have began to push you and carry you and skew you back into the perception field of one, back into the perception field of all, back into the perception field of the perception field that has lost you, within the perception field where you sit. And as you become found, as you find yourself, as you remember yourself for who and what you truly are, for none of the physicality of everything that you have been shifting in and out of represents that in which you are in this very moment in time and in every moment in time within your reality field. For none of this energetic frequency that you decipher to be true and to be real within this reality field and beyond was ever able to dictate, was ever able to tell a story, was ever able to encompass all that you've ever been. And as you shift back into the oneness of the neutrality consciousness that in which you come from, you will forever archingly come into memories of Yeshua, of Adam, of Eve, of those lifetimes upon lifetimes of reincarnation cycles that you've ever been able to shift through, shift into and shift out of. And as this video may be a bit confusing, if you haven't come into the memory of who and what you truly are, I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, that as soon as you do, you will come across my content and you will come across my video. You will join me in essence of all that we've ever been in a reality field of the consciousness of one, as we tell the story of the self, as we relish in the memories of the darkness that we've ever traversed through, as we grow from the problematic problems of today's field, of forever arching fields that we've descended down into this physicality of a lifetime to experience, to remember, and to finally shift ourselves back home into wholeness through a forever field of confusions lost, through a forever arching field of the self, of all selves found. And as I'm about to lose my voice from too much talking, I would like to close this video by saying thank you. Thank you for sitting through all of this. And if you've tapped out, I promise that there's a purpose to all of this. I promise that you will be back and re-listen to the ending of this video, to the beginning of a new reality field that you will shift into. And as I represent the light of the extension field, of the neutrality consciousness that makes up the anchoring of the light that Yeshua had brought down into our reality field for once and for final and for never and for always, once upon a time, a little over 2,000 years ago. I'd like to sit here and relish in this moment of the self of the one that we shall forever be, as you represent the same energy as the energy of all, as the energy that I sit in, as the energy that we are skewing towards, but just not in perception in this very moment, in the seat of where you sit. As you come into the memories of the representation of this brightest light that you anchored down a little over 2,000 years ago as a fractal aspect of a consciousness in which you come from, to save you, to save I, to bring home the brightest light, to conjure up the greatest depths in the despair of all that you've ever been, to rally home parts and pieces of fractal self that have been lost to the winds of time for far too long. You will be brought home, along with the free will that you agreed to traverse through at the beginning of this exploration of the biting of that apple. As Adam, as Eve, as Yeshua, as our reality fields, as the consciousness within and without this reality field, as the consciousness within the wind tunneling system that has been running through the veins of our quantum verse for all of this time. You will come home to the one, to the all, of the forcefulness, of the non-forcefulness, of the free will that you've ever been granted. It's time to wrap up this game, ladies and gentlemen, that we have created for ourselves. And as you walk the path of tribulations, of experiencing the deepest darkness, the deepest sorrows, the deepest separated state that you could ever traverse through, just remember that all of that was for a purpose. All of that was for a reason. And as you come across the brightest light, hold on to that light, hold on to that faith in your heart that shall forever archingly not be lost and never forgotten or begotten, as it has been permanently placed within your soul blueprint to carry that remembrance of home, to carry you home once it was time, once it is time, for the collapse of this reality field that will bring us into a brighter, more wholesome, more lighter frequency of a 5-dimensional frequency of remembrance. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, I shall release a string of videos, a string of content that you may be able to shift into and discover and fathom to be true or untrue or unreal within any moment in time.